People forget old school Hillary Clinton, man. People forget that glass ceiling. People forget. And I'm not talking Democratic Party. I'm into individuals. I'm into individuals above groups, and I'm into the group of individuals. So I'm not talking about the Democratic Party. I'm not talking about necessarily Hillary Clinton's run, all the controversy, all that shit. People say talk's cheap, but in the beginning was the work. What we say matters. Back when Hillary Clinton went to this women's conference in Beijing back in the 90s, it wasn't that long ago, but it was long ago in so much as the China-America United States relation was very different. It's, in 20 plus years, it's radically changed. And she caught heat from the Democrats, she caught heat from the Republicans, she caught heat from everybody going there. And she dressed up in her little fucking Barbie doll, pink, bullshit fucking outfit. One minute 55. Dolly's Abraham. Galatea. Gala. Alright, but that wasn't just like political. That was Barbie doll. Why? Because China's where motherfucking Barbie dolls are made. What's Barbie got? Barbie's got a Jeep. Barbie does what she wants. So for all the praise and love of the East and the Eastern traditions and the Eastern masters, we should remember the Eastern masters, the Western masters. If you love China, if you love Japan, it's only recently I realized there was this great rift between Korea and Japan. I never knew that before. But a lot of Koreans look upon Japan the way a lot of Westerners look upon Nazis. But for that matter, there's a similar racism between Koreans and Japanese on both sides. So I've recently learned, as there is in the US, north, south, black, white, blue, gray. But anyway, it was a strategic move that she would be associated with the thing that a lot of women put their hands on every day, over and over and over again. Right? But what I'm trying to say is, in a lot of ways, like we reduce Martin Luther King Jr. to his speech at the Lincoln Memorial. That's his life. Or his speech, his I've been to the mountaintop speech, right? Basically those two speeches. I know the march is all this and that, but like in our minds, most of us, especially us white folk, you can reduce that to those moments, and they mean something. They're important. They do mean something. And I understand all the criticism, all the historical criticism. I understand all the conspiracy. I understand a whole lot more than that, too. But it's important. So far as Hillary Clinton goes, if you reduce her entire historical life to this fucking speech, it's one of the most important speeches given, certainly at the turn of the 20th century. It's one of the most important things said. It's like 20 minutes in my lifetime. And it reaches back, it's 20 minutes, and it reaches back 2,000, 20,000 years. 2,000 for sure. Parmenides, it is. Black Lives Matters and everything right now. And it's so awesome that in America, skin, man, never mind DNA, which is the true race, blood types and all that kind of thing. And forget all that anyway, just saying. Because there are people who are more genetically alike of different colors, depending on, blood types, DNA, all that kind of thing. Or still, more related. But, anyway. We always got to reach for the weakest. And the weakest has always been women and little girls. And it don't matter what color. Us old white dudes, we're going to be usurped, man. We're going to be usurped. Not to mention dudes will be usurped, too. I remember when I was in biology in high school. When I in a biology class in high school, I remember I took... there was this one point where it talked about how there's 102 women born for every 100 men. So 51 women for 50 men. My assumption is genetically, evolutionarily, Darwinianally, is that 1 in 50 women get murdered, probably from jealousy. More women than that are murdered, of course, and of course men are murdered too. But there's that little bit extra of women murdered from men. If you can consider 1 out of 50 a little, which I don't. But in a more equitable world, if that birth rate continues, if it's accurate in the first place, there will be more women. And of course, the blending of pigment, there'll be less white. So we're at the heyday of white dudes. But we don't want the empowerment of women to be taking on, we don't want it to be a capture the flag situation, in so much as, I was listening to this thing on NPR today where they were talking about this song, and they were speaking about it in a way where it was like women's liberation, where they were, I don't know the song, it's popular right now, it's set some sort of record or whatever, but we're talking about putting the vagina across the nose, like swiping a MasterCard or whatever. I'm not really sure. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm not down with that. That's great. It's not like I'm not a pervert. It's not like I can't just, I can be as Dionysian as Dionysus. But I guess what I'm saying is we shouldn't confuse a reversal of roles with liberation. Just saying. There's a lot of minutiae in that, but it's worth noting. Hillary Clinton in Beijing in the fucking 90s. Women's liberation. Because when it comes to politics, she also wrote that book, It Takes a Village. I listened to the audiobook. She read it herself. It was painful. It was painful to listen to. But she gave one of the greatest... There's a quote in there, and I don't have that on hand right now. Maybe I'll play it later, but there's a quote in there about we treat, that about how politicians pay lip service to children, but treat them like garbage. And just the way she said it really struck home. And she wrote a whole fucking book about it. Which is what should have been on stage when she was running for office in the first place, but wasn't. Why? Because nobody gives a fuck.
Okay, we do. I'm just saying.
But what she said here about women, and we got to remember, the women, the young girls of the ages, we're not talking about the secret societies. We're not talking about the women behind things who have been running this show for a long motherfucking time. There are women of power that stretch far back before Cleopatra and have been here all along. But that's not the majority of women and girls who we are to be looking out for, and we haven't. We as men. I mean, me call myself a man, what a joke. Trust me. But, I fit the bill. I mean, Hillary Clinton here, in this video, Hillary Clinton's 100 times more man than I am. Hands down. And I don't even mean that in like some kind of fucked up way. Man, hand. Manus, hand. What we do with our hands. Man, hand. Woman, closed hand with the womb. When you're holding something and doing something. Man, hand. Men. Multiple hands. Mind. But this is it, man. This is the quote.
These abuses have continued because for too long, the history of women has been a history of silence. Even today, there are those who are trying to silence our words. But the voices of this conference and of the women at YRO must be heard loudly and clearly. It is a violation of human rights when babies are denied food or drowned or suffocated or their spines broken simply because they are born girls. It is a violation of human rights when women and girls are sold into the slavery of prostitution for human greed, and the kinds of reasons that are used to justify this practice should no longer be tolerated.
Nobody talks about that. Nobody.
It is a violation of human rights when women are doused with gasoline, set on fire, and burned to death because their marriage dowries are deemed too small. It is a violation of human rights when individual women are raped in their own communities and when thousands of women are subjected to rape as a tactic or prize of war. It is a violation of human rights when a leading cause of death worldwide among women ages 14 to 44 is the violence they are subjected to in their own homes by their own relatives. It is a violation of human rights when young girls are brutalized by the painful and degrading practice of genital mutilation.
Guys, too.
It is a violation of human rights when women are denied the right to plan their own families, and that includes being forced to have abortions or being sterilized against their will.
Freedom of choice goes both ways. Both ways. Just saying.
This book helped our ancestors survive war, famines, economic crises, drought, disease, any.
If there is one message that echoes forth from this conference, let it be that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights once and for all.
Yeah, it is, man. It is the Hillary Clinton. It is stretch. It was a big moment that she did that, man. And that entire dialogue is still waiting in the wings. That's not to say there hasn't been progress made. Then on the other hand, I've said this before too, but would there be, on the other side of the spectrum, would there be a woman mayor in Baghdad had George Bush not done what he did? Tough. And would I have the will to do what Hillary Clinton or George Bush or what the soldiers or what the philosophers did? I can't say right off that I would. I guess I have my own tests and my own trials. But anyway. It sucks the way we just write people off and the way we politicize people and the way we complain about politics, but we make politicians politicize by the way we act and by the way we react and by the way we don't really look into things. And it's sad. It's sad that that speech isn't one of the most famous, heralded. Yeah, it suffers from pre-Ebonic dialect, which might sound racist, but at the late 90s, Ebonics affected the way everybody speaks. If it hadn't already. It pretty well killed that way of speaking, but that was the way of speaking then. That's it. Thousands of years.